So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome, awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big, I'm telling you.
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities and in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We have a very special guest today that I just can't wait to introduce to you all. But before we start, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Feel free to share the Twitch link to anyone. We invite everybody and all. And if I may ask, in the chat box, okay, there is a way for you to chat your questions. We will have a Q&A moment. Feel free to chat them in so that way you don't forget, and we will do our very best to get to all the questions. And if I may, before I do an introduction, please on the chat box, just go crazy and give a warm welcome to Ayan. So Ayan is, if I may, just give the mic away to Ayan. She is our Collegiate Star League ambassador. So she'll share a little bit about herself. And our topic today is diversity in esports. So Ayan, take it away.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Ruben, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name's Ayan, and I am a C-Star League ambassador. So Collegiate Star League is the largest tournament operator in North America, and what we do is we serve colleges and universities with esports tournaments. So a lot of what I get to do is talk about CSL with students and students that are interested in getting involved in esports or competing on behalf of their campus. But I also get to help out with events. So one of the really cool ambassador things that we got to do was bring over branding and merchandise over to events, and also help. Also help other students if they were looking for support or involvement, get them involved too.
Geez, that's wonderful. Gosh, you just gave us a great list that I'm even trying to keep up. If I may ask, so where did you get your degree in? Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Toronto. I'm in Canada, and I went to York University. And for anybody that's local to Toronto, York University has a bit of a negative reputation. I got my degree in health studies. So what I specialized in was health management, policy, and informatics. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the esports stuff I'm doing now, because my role would be more of a events marketing position. But it's kind of the same, because we work on frameworks and systems. So I learned how to transfer all of that over. Prior to this, I was a Humber College student, and I got a degree as a law clerk, and I worked in a firm for a bit, and then I decided I was going to attend school again. So that's the story of how I ended up at York and how I got my degree.
Amazing. Wow, what a journey. And if I may, like, how did you get started with esports? Like what led you to esports to begin with?
Okay, so to be honest, I'm a huge gamer since I was a kid.
Nice.
My first console was a Sega Genesis. I'm showing my age here. I played games growing up. I used to play a lot of things, so rhythm games. I used to play fighting games like Soul Calibur and stuff, and I would even get into playing. Eventually, I got into playing RTS games. So my first RTS was Warcraft 3. I really loved playing it. I got into Dota eventually, and MOBAs became my heart. So I played a lot of League of Legends. I used to play ranked with my friends. I thought it was really cool, and I liked the social aspect. So what I did was run online tournaments, and I used a platform called TeamSpeak. And when I finished with running tournaments on TeamSpeak, I thought, how can I do this in a way that's beneficial to people and do it at school? So I started volunteering at Humber's League of Legends Club. And then they never really gave me a position or opportunity to help out. I think it was because I was near the end of my studying, and I didn't really have the time to kind of get involved there. So when I went to York, the first thing I did was look up if we had an esports club. I was like, I'm going to get involved and I'm going to join and I'm going to participate. And since we were entering this kind of complicated stage of the president transferred in, and there was nobody left over from the year. They all graduated, so they kind of left him with the heavy load. So I just started helping him. I was volunteering, and then eventually I became the vice president of our club.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. That much passion that you have to actually just pick it up and carry it, right? And I guess, I mean, it also speaks to, from what I understand, a lot of esports organizations or associations that, leadership is very key. So having that infrastructure to be able to say, hey, before we leave and graduate, let's pass down some of the knowledge and possibly even mistakes and learnings that we've gone through, so that way it keeps evolving and thriving for the younger group that are coming in. So man, I just, wow, that's amazing. The fact that you,
Thank you.
yeah, my gosh.
Yeah.
um and Ayan, if you don't mind, if you don't mind just jumping into the since your time in your career in the Collegiate Star League, and just even just hearing how you climbed up that rank, if you will, like, hey, you started at a club association level, being the vice president, being able to advocate. How did you get and land this position?
Okay, so with CSL, they were actually reaching out to campuses to let more schools know about the program. And how I got my position was it's kind of funny, because a lot of people think there's like, oh, you had to apply for the position and do something formally. I actually just became friends with the person that was reaching out, because we did our first outreach call, and then I hit him up one day. I'm like, hey, what kind of music do you listen to? Because I'm a huge fan of, like, I really like festivals and like music, and I love sharing arts with people. So I hit him up, and then we became friends. And eventually, he recognized me when he was building up the ambassador program, and he sent me the position before it became available. He said, you've been working hard. Seems like you really got your hands dirty and started working on your esports club. We have this position coming up. Do you want to apply for it? So I applied for it, and I went with it. And I don't think it was a luck thing. One of the things that I've heard a lot of people use, and I think it's negatively applied to people, is saying that they got lucky when they got a position. Esports is all networking. It's so fresh and so new that everybody that you know, like, there will be somebody to you in the future, and you can't just expect something out of them immediately. I became friends with Justin because I thought he was super cool, and then he hit me up for a role at CSL, and now I might continue with the rest of their management, but it all depended on that first role.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And even for our viewers too that are tuning in, I know that was a big like takeaway, that the communication and networking and the ability to make friends, and it really starts with your teammates too, as you're playing competitively or casually. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because networking is I mean, all that we have to do, you know what I mean? We have to live in a way to bring others together and being able to share other resources, skill sets that we could
Yeah,
expect to.
absolutely. The role didn't even exist before I got hit up. So that's very common. Sometimes a group that's already used to hiring people, they'll start a whole new program up and they're going to pick the people they know because you have to be a trusted individual to work with them.
That's right. That's right. And just even hearing a little bit about your background, like you had experience just pursuing a passion and just putting the extra effort. There was really no standard. You were just continuously working on that. And it showed. It showed. I mean, I'm sure people have to see, and that's what I hear a lot, like, hey, you have to put in a lot of like hours. You have to put in a lot of effort. It's almost like the artist pathway, right? It's like you put in these practice, networking, constantly grinding, quote unquote. It's just so that you could showcase how people really see your work ethic. So that's really neat. That's awesome. Um, Excellent. And Ayan, if you don't mind, just diving in a little bit about diversity. Has it gotten better in the world of esports in the industry? Has it not? What is it that we're lacking?
Okay, so I like that you brought up you used a special word earlier that I like to bring up. It's infrastructure. And I also like that you brought up that that I had the work ethic to get to where I got to. A lot of the times it's uncontrolled work ethic that can lead to having people be taken advantage of, and
Mm,
also predominantly people of color or women, because we're told that we have to put in a lot of time, we have to put in a lot of work, and it takes a long time to see the results of that work in
mm,
comparison to other individuals who will put in, let's say, the same amount of hours, but let's say they had a mom or dad who's friends with somebody in the space. And like these types of opportunities do exist for some people. Do I think that esports is improving at addressing it? I think that we're starting to call things out now because of COVID-19.
mm,
So our saturation of social media and the fact that we all have to pay attention to it, that's one of the reasons why these issues are being highlighted. But in terms of actual work, I think that a lot of it is fluff. And I'm going to keep it blunt because I've seen a lot of bold PR takes from some people,
mm,
but I've seen some company statements that were way better from Lego. And like these are children's companies. And then esports organizations will say, hey, we're going to do this tournament and we're going to get the sponsor involved. And by the way, we can't actually have the sponsor involved, but we're going to try to do it anyways. And then when we can't go through with the tournament, we're going to blame that publisher, even though it was like their own fault. So I think that dealing with something like that and seeing it in that lens, it kind of disappoints me, but I'm not surprised and I'm not shocked, because diversity for some people is something that they just started thinking about. But for me, it's something that I had to think about while I was leading my club. I had to think about it while I was getting my job. I have to think about it when I go to interviews. I have to think about it when I speak to people in meetings, how much I say, and I have to think about it all the time because that's who I am.
mm.
Right. So
Right.
being a woman of color in my esports club, I was the only one.
Mm,
And I didn't advance into their presidency roles or anything like that because there just wasn't that seat for me. And I worked hard, and sometimes your hard work won't be met with the results that you know that you should be getting. But I'm not holding that against anybody. I think that I wish them the absolute most success with what they're up to and what they're doing. And I think that it really pushed me to look outside. And that's how I ended up at CSL, because I knew that I couldn't just be doing one thing at York. But also, um, like when we go back into diversity, I run panels and I run workshops like this all the time. And every time I get recommendations from people in predominantly white or different minority structures, you won't have any voice of any Black people present. And it'll never occur to them until Black Lives Matter is going on for them to think, hey, I should have a Black person on this panel, or hey, I should have somebody else. I always ask them, I say, what about this list looks the same to you? And I get no response. And it's something where, and then as soon as it's BLM time, it's, hey, Ayan, do you know any Black people? Of course I know Black people. I am Black. I'm going to know them. They're
right.
my friends, right? But I'm not gonna waste their time to do something where, let's say, 6 or 7 people are going to be asking them, and there might be paid opportunities in there. They don't have the time to be charitable. They're human beings. They work for a living just like we do, right?
Yeah.
So my take is that it's improving, but it has a lot of work to do.
No, and I want to add to that. I think you said something so key, and even just when I think of the word even diverse, I mean, or diversity, it's almost like, and I've been in those spaces too, talking to publishers, talking to people that are in the esports industry, and I completely agree. It's almost they're oblivious a little bit. They just don't see it in the right lens. And I guess that's the part that I feel just more of the responsibility as an educator to be able to surface that up. Um, and when I see that they're not seeing the picture, if you will, or the big picture, then I think to myself, how rapidly are you working where you're not getting even diverse opinions, that there is something wrong with this picture, right? So even just as quickly as we rapidly work sometimes in the work field or in our projects, and we want to quickly get to a result, a lot of the times I don't even think the process is valid anymore, because there isn't a diverse of opinions to actually say, hey, there is something wrong with this picture. And somebody could have stopped you in the infrastructure, right, in the organization, to say, hey, we don't have an equal representation right now. We're not putting the right people in leadership capacities to help them grow. We're not getting multiple voices. We're going to become bland. I mean, just in nature, because the product is being repeated. We need something to better represent esports as an industry as a whole, in order for us to get the best and optimal of people, because that's really what it does. It can be served as that agency, if you will, to showcase some of the great talents and learnings that are had. So I completely agree. Like it just almost becomes unclear, and because it's almost in nature that it's it's the stresses of the work, and you want to blame work, but really it's, when do we stop to reflect? You know what I mean? When do we actually have that moment to decompress and unplug and actually look at this as there is an issue that's evident. It's been talked about, and not just recently. It's been happening, and we're just turning on to the TV right now to actually hear these campaign movements, and we think, well, oh gosh, we just have this problem now. No, it's been happening. It's just there's been cloudiness, if you will, in the lens, um, in people's minds. So I couldn't agree with you more on that, and it's something that even for our viewers that are watching, and for the future viewers that are going to be watching this afterwards, like I almost encourage them to see, hey, what is it that they're doing right now in the process that is including more people as opposed to excluding, and what is it that we're in secondhand nature, like what is it that we're unconsciously doing, and sort of questioning that, so that we can hopefully get to a better space, if you will. But please share a little bit more. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that because I couldn't agree with you more, and I wanted to speak out. um,
No, you're absolutely right. You're well within the right to speak out, because this is something where it's like you said, there are some people who put their money where their mouth is, and there's some people who really feel like this is the perfect PR opportunity to say, hey, we're gender diverse, we're inclusive, we're this, we're that. And these are the companies who didn't even put statements out immediately. And I get that there's like a whole chain process that you have to go through. There's a lot of people that call these shots, but it shows you that who is in the position to call these shots are not the people who should be speaking on this. And like, is it like, do you hire a chief diversity officer for show, or do you actually care about diversity? And it's from the top down structures where racism is so pervasive, and misogyny, because you could look at a leadership structure and you could see a bunch of white men, and it's only an issue to people if they see a leadership structure that's diverse. Then they think, oh yeah, well, you're tokenizing people. So why is it that the straight white men leading the company has to be the norm? And this is something we can't debate, we can't argue with. And once they stick one person of color in there, it's diverse. But when it comes to making these types of decisions, you can clearly see that they're able to call these shots and they won't do it.
Mm.
And it translates into the entire company. So it's just like how institutional racism starts in schools and starts in the school to prison pipeline. It starts with the fact that areas with people who are predominantly people of color will be placed in zones where they won't get the exact funding for their school that another school will if it's in the suburbs. It's things that these issues translate all across the world, and it will happen in gaming too, because there was a statement from somebody where he said, I can't hire any black people because they're not looking for any of the jobs. And somebody called him out. They tagged a whole bunch of freelancers that are in the space that have a huge media presence. And it's like, you would consciously make this decision and then make up an excuse. It's kind of better if you didn't say anything, you know,
Right, right,
because
right.
it's
Yeah.
better than giving a false statement or a false pretense to something that you weren't actually considering working on. So I think that because it's so ingrained, a lot of these structures need to be completely well, okay, so I don't want to sound extreme, but I think a lot of them do need to be dismantled, because there
Mm,
are people who need to be fired and they needed to be gone yesterday. And the
mm,
reason why you can see all of these things now, especially right now, because we're talking diversity, so we're also going to talk about what's been happening right now in gaming, where a bunch of women have raised allegations of sexual assault and other
mm,
concerns. This is a issue that's existed and has been swept under the rug for so long. It's not new. It's been around. We've known about it. And these people continue to associate with these people. They continue to hire them. They continue to get them into spaces. So it's like they haven't been making that conscious effort. And yes, we can help change that. But I think that collegiate might be the gateway that we need, because now we're finally getting people who are interested in involving schools and involving areas where we wouldn't find the same talent that we would before. And now there's a few organizations like Tech for COVID. They were raising money for HBCUs and some other companies as well, who are kind of focusing on the people who never really got that chance, because we all know what esports predominantly looks like. But where do they get their culture? Even the
mm.
streetwear, the fashion, everything. It's from people of color. It's from us. And I feel like if we're not going to be representing this thing that we helped create, they had to make a conscious effort to exclude us, because that's exactly how society operates.
Mm. Wow. I mean, yeah, I mean, just gosh, I mean, it's well said. I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm just processing it all because it's so true that it really stems from just us early on, right? When I say us, it's like us as kids getting into the elementary to middle to high, and then being able to obtain the ability where schools are now offering, and it's not true with every school, uh, sort of understanding what the esports space and realm looks like, to pursue something that you really love to do, and you're finally getting a chance to be able to network with your friends and getting into a space that colleges want to offer this, so that we can start being looked at, especially high diverse colleges and high schools and middle schools and what have you. Those are all great pieces to get us into that space to hopefully say, hey, look, we're going to make some noise here. We're going to actually uh, surprise you with what it is that we have talents in, so that way we warrant some kind of attention. But it's it's network finding, right? It's always this, well, esports is a private thing. Esports is something that perhaps we only look at certain institutions because they have a very high credible um, prestige in certain fields of discipline. And I just beg to differ, because it's, our community is pushing this notion. And honestly, even just from getting a chance to talk to a few of our students, it's the part of normal that they feel right now, especially during this COVID time. So it's, I mean, I'm amazed that it is very specific to obtaining, hey, we're going to build this network and we're going to keep building, 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 but we're going to become so blah that the product is going to diminish, really. And like you said, the culture aspect, the ability to bring in more diverse voices, diverse personalities, people of all kind, all over the world too, on top of that. um, I just see that to me, I don't compute it very well. And sometimes I'm grateful that I don't understand that side of the spectrum, if you will. But yeah, I mean, and what do you encourage like our students, especially that are listening in? What are something that you would, um, you know, ask them? Hey, you know, you're in this phase of your life. You obviously had to climb so much, Ayan, from just listening to your story. Uh, what is it that you recommend them to do? Words of
Uh,
wisdom, if you will.
so I've heard this quote a lot, and I'm going to repeat it because I think it's very important. It's that you can't expect or rely on anybody to be your representation. You
Mm,
have to represent yourself.
yep,
So me, I'm a Somali woman. My family's from the refugee diaspora.
mm,
I came to Canada when I was very young, just like everybody else, and I am who I am. I can't like see a lot of myself being represented in the media and esports, and I can't see a lot of it being represented in schools either in the collegiate space. So I had to become that person
mm,
to represent the people who are like me, because nobody's going to do that for you. You can't just say, "Oh, we need that representation." We have to you have to fight for it. You have to fight to be in those spaces, to be included, and to also make sure that your voice is known. There's going to be times where you're going to have to eat whatever happens, and it might be for money, it might be for something else, and that trade-off isn't something you should feel guilty about, because there are times where I've had to keep my mouth quiet on certain issues, like prior to when the movements were starting up again. I had to be very quiet on social media because I was starting off a new job, and I was very cautious. I was very nervous about what my employers would think of me if I tweeted all of my opinions. And then as soon as the George Floyd protests were happening, I'm like, I have two younger brothers that this could affect. I am not keeping my mouth shut. This is when I'm going to speak up. But it's knowing what you can offer to a space, and knowing how far you are and how confident you are. That's what's going to be able to that's what's going to be able to help you evaluate your decision on what it is you choose to speak on and what you choose to say. So my activism is a part of my life. It's not just a part of work. It's not a part of esports only. It's a part of when I go home. It's a part of whenever I take care of my younger siblings or my family members. These are things that I'm always thinking about because it affects me very personally. But there are battles that you're not going to be able to fight because maybe it's an institution where you're being paid and you might get fired. And it's okay to be afraid of that, because I have been in a position where I had to take things that were against my morals because I needed money. So just as long as you remember that anyone who truly cares about you, an employer or a person you would like to work with, will respect you on the foundations of who you are and not who you pretend to be. That's, I guess, like the biggest takeaway that I had learning with CSL. My boss was actually very supportive. He called me, so he was my boss's boss, because one of the people who was in charge quit. He called me to say that he was very proud that I used my voice to speak up on my platform. And I think that if you have more people like that, that's when change is going to happen, because we can't do it alone, right? And be your own representation, be your voice, because the other people who are like you, they need to hear it from somebody.
yeah, no, I completely agree. And I just got somebody just mentioned right now, they love what you just said about activism is a part of life. Completely agree. You've got to be the same person all throughout. That's how you identify with yourself. And I get it. There's going to be a lot of soul searching in a lot of this, especially at the early times of your life. And we're constantly trying to find that piece too. We're trying to Rubik's Cube what life is. And being able to have dialogues and feel safe is important early on. And we can do it in the gaming community so that we're essentially being able to be ourselves. That's what I love about esports, is that you really have that sense of letting go some of the guards, if you will, because I mean, yeah, we can go based off different names if we wanted to today. You know what I mean? I'm not Ruben Caputo. I'm my gamer tag name, right? And
Yeah, like I'm Ari Pud.
yeah, exactly. I'm quote unquote given so many different names. It's hilarious. Somebody called me Mr. 24/7. So it's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? We could be open freely and talk and have voice, and
Yeah.
being able to do our also social justice activism, which is important, and to stand up too whenever we
Yeah.
see it, to call it, you know what I mean, and not be shy about it or afraid. That's ultimately what I'm hearing too, because of how you've encountered challenges in your life. And somebody just asked me via Discord, if you can share with us what was like the most difficult moment that you've had um, in this issue of diversity. Like, what was, if you could just share your story, if you will, and you don't have to name any names. That's okay.
Yeah, I know you guys want some tea, but I can't give names. But
Yeah.
I guess the most difficult thing for me, and I will speak up on it now because I feel comfortable enough to share. I worked super hard on a project. I wanted to get somebody involved, and I've heard about this kind of thing happening before, but I was very naive. Despite having a legal background and knowledge, I still fell for the same mistake of thinking everybody's nice.
Mm.
So I was looking for some help with this project, some sponsors, some endorsements, and somebody reached out to me. She said that she really wanted to fund my project, and I thought that was so cool. And you know, when you get a gut feeling, you're like, this is too good to be true. You don't know me, you don't know anything about what I'm trying to do. That's kind of strange.
Yeah.
So I sent over a lot of confidential information, which it wasn't very original, but like the IP, the writing, all of that stuff was mine. And then after I sent it over, it was all taken from me and used to run an event for a corporate company that she was working for. So yeah,
No.
I'm not going to name any
Okay.
names. I'm not going to say who it was.
Yeah.
And when I finally spoke up about it, a lot of people ostracized me in my own community because this was a person who was so nice who could never ever do something like that. And Ayan was being the angry one. And yeah, we have issues with her because she's super opinionated all the time. So it
Mhm.
was really hard hitting.
Yeah.
In that moment, I wanted to quit esports because I didn't believe in anything I was doing anymore. And I thought, oh, wow, I guess everyone's just awful and people are like that.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I started seeking out mentorship that I was able to say, hey, build some more confidence, believe in yourself and what it is that you want to do. And I'm very thankful. My mentors have been great to me. He's been amazing. And he's also discussed these very difficult issues with me. So right off the bat, this was something I brought up to him. And at the in the time that this was going on, I thought, if it helps the space, then it's good for the space. But at the time, I wish I would have been more vocal because it hurt me. Like it was something that hurt me, and
Mm.
I think that one of the things that people do is, like the angry black woman trope that goes around. I
Yeah.
know I'm light skinned. I do have a degree of light skin privilege that comes with it.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, I think when I speak and I voice myself, some people will put me into that category of, oh, she's very angry, even though I'm not upset at all. I've
Mm.
had people afraid to approach me at events because they would think I was intimidating, and I actually just wanted to talk to them. So it was confusing. I didn't feel like I gave off that vibe or that message, but yeah, just having my IP taken from me, not being able to do anything about it because I didn't have the legal stuff covered or anything, that was probably the most difficult thing I had to deal with. And then my reaction afterwards. I'm grateful my mom helped me through it. Really thankful to my mom because she was like, don't cry in front of anybody. Don't
Mm.
talk about it. If you cry, you're giving them the emotions and the tears that they want. So just stop it. So yeah, that was, I guess, the hardest thing.
Gosh, Ayan, gosh, thank you for sharing your heart. Gosh, and thank you for inviting us with that, because that's these are very real situations, and like you said, it hurt you and demoralized you, and to a brink of quitting. I mean, that's big. And thank you, chat community. Just, I know I'm doing the same thing. I want to give
I
you one
can
of
see
these.
the love that they're saying.
Yeah,
Thank
please.
you guys. I'm so much better now. I've done
Yep.
so many more projects since then, and they were all great. So like I'm so happy. That failure taught me a huge lesson about people and about life. And you can't be scared to fail. These things happen a lot. And all I say is just protect yourself. Make sure that you have the legal stuff done. Make sure your paperwork's good. Always make sure that you know who you're talking to before you, like, not everybody's nice.
Yeah, no, that's true. You got to be careful out there. You know what I mean? It's sad. You know what I mean, when we encounter that. But at the same time, I really appreciate you even encouraging that. you can learn lessons from failure, and probably those are probably the most valuable ones. um, but yeah, gosh, thank you again for sharing. Because and I wanted to ask you, because you said something there that I found very interesting. You said about you reached out to a mentor. Now, was this a mentor in the world of esports, or please share a little bit more, enlighten us.
Yeah, so I actually found my mentor because this situation made me kind of plummet, and I was questioning my local community. So I didn't know who I should be friends with or talk to. I
Okay.
actually reached out to a friend who is in a different part of the world completely. And he said he would refer me over to somebody that he knew very well who specialized in helping students. And from there, my mentor relationship with this person, mentor mentee relationship, grew very organically. So it's not like I said, hey, can you mentor me? Like, with the mentorship programs where they'll be going for like a few weeks and somebody's
Right,
mentoring
right,
somebody else. No,
right.
it was very natural progression where I would just send him work, and then it turned into us talking almost every day. And he would review my work, review my resume, help me out, and help me with things that I didn't know anything about before, like strategic volunteering, a bunch of stuff that organizational behavior classes don't teach you, like how to send proper emails, how to write proper copy. Like these kind of things really helped me, and I was getting it from somebody who had experience training and teaching students, so they weren't doing it in a predatory way. This was their way of life and how they found fulfillment. So I think that I strongly advocate for having a mentor, because that person will back you through whatever it is that you're going through. Obviously, when you're wrong, they'll call you out on it, but it's good to have someone throw it back in your face, like, hey, this happened, so are you just going to pack up and quit, or are you going to do something about it?
Right.
And that's what I needed at that time, was that really strong push, and he helped me get there.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly what you said earlier about you can't do it alone. You do have to find a network, a group of people that essentially are going to be your support system through the tough ones and through the good ones. You know what I mean? So those times are going to come up in life, and that's just beyond esports too. And I really like what you said about transferring those skills that you've gotten from esports that's really helped mold even just what you do now, and even just how you carry that into life too, as a way to live. That's awesome, Ayan. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to invite everybody as well. Please feel free to ask your questions. We sort of naturally progressed into the Q&A section. It can be comments.
I saw a
So,
question on Twitch.
oh
I
yes,
can
please.
answer it. Yeah, I'll
Yep.
take a stab at it. It says, I have a question for Ayan. Being a fellow person of color in esports, how do you keep from being bitter about the situation and kept just walking away from it? Okay, that one is, yeah. So I mentioned a bit about how I talk to my mom a lot. My mom's really helpful with that kind of situation, because she instilled a lot of values into me. And one of those was not showing people how emotional I am, and also not letting people get the best of me in public, because I would be the one that ended up judged in that situation. So I live by her words, but also because some battles are going to be very big, and you need energy for those, so you can't waste your time fighting the smaller ones where you know that that person's not going to learn. So I actually had a strategy for this in my esports club. I used to funnel some of the ideas that I had, because I would be met with a lot of pushback through other people, through men like that were in the club too, just because I didn't want to deal with that argument. So I would funnel it through them, and it would suddenly be acceptable. So I just kept doing that. It was demoralizing because, like you said, you want to be given credit for your ideas and your work. That's why I always push crediting people, saying good job, saying thank yous. But at the time, I was like, do I exhaust my mental health by arguing with people where I love this thing and what I'm doing? Or do I just come up with a different strategy? So that's exactly what I did. I started working more in silence and pushing it through other people. And on the positive note, ideas aren't very original, so it's not like they wouldn't come up with this in the future. And it also helped me feel great, because I was giving them a chance to have that confidence boost to take over what I started, so I wouldn't be leaving them for dead.
Gosh, well said. I mean, and I love that you mentioned about the mental health piece, because just last week we did have our esports psychologist come in, and share, positive thinking, positive mental health, uh, especially in the world of esports, and just even words, how they're so important in the language, and how we deal with microaggressions as well too. And what you just said earlier about, I mean, it just goes full circle. So what you just mentioned just like hits home right now about being able to understand, to pick and choose your battles, right? If that person is not ready to learn something new, probably not the time. You did your best, quote unquote. That person is just not in that frame of mind to allow new information in. And I think that's very big, to be able to identify those things. And it comes with time and practice, because sometimes we think all of our ideas are great or everything we have to say needs to be heard. But it's, some people are going to tune you out. And that's the reality. And to be able to identify those help also to see where efforts should be allocated, so that we can create hopefully agents of change, or being able to help them when they need help. And at the same time, you never know, they're going to help you when you're down. um, yeah, I've personally just, I've come across being able to see, dealing with different folks in academia, and I realized that not everybody understands even just esports in itself. And when I think of esports, I always think of this is the strategy. This is a way to help our students to be able to get to a pathway where they can showcase their skills, because it's an engagement piece for them. Um, and even incorporating academia and being able to say, hey, we're offering this to everybody, um, is already a big victory in trying to move this diverse movement into, sorry, I'm looking like I'm addressing, everybody, like with my hands, like everybody, to go into a space where we have equal opportunity, and being able to feel like we have these spaces where we're being supported by bigger institutions.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. You're right, because it's a broader approach, and with having it in academia, you're going to open up the doors to people who didn't even know it existed, or
mm,
just simply didn't have the access, because there are different barriers, right? Like esports
right,
in and of itself is a very privileged thing, and that's what people don't think about. Some people don't have internet, some people don't have a high speed computer at home. We talk about the economic divide between different types of communities, like the whole. So first of all, I hate the term PC master race. I did not like using it while I was in college esports, and I still don't use it, because some of the greatest people I ever met were from the console community, and it's also based on an economic divide.
right,
PC master race says I have $3,000 for a rig, you have $400 for a console. So just think about where that comes from. And then master race, like the language, I don't appreciate it. I don't like it. And these are things that people don't even think about. It's something that we've grown up with.
right,
And if you look at like how fighting games, like they started with arcades, and because that's what people had access to, and then
right,
eventually moved into in-home systems because they were easier to afford. But then you move into PC gaming, where it's like everybody has like a huge expensive desktop and peripherals and everything. Not everybody has access to that, and gaming cafes are not popular in North America. They're more popular in Asian countries, but over here it's LAN centers just recently started popping up.
right,
And even then, they still don't consider going into the areas where these things wouldn't be available. Only one LAN center that I know of did that.
mm,
So it kind of shows you, like, are we even the market that's being appealed to, or not?
mm,
And like you said, introducing it into schools is great, because everybody who's coming in, all the students in the foot traffic, they could go into an arena that's set up by their school and play games, have access to high speed internet. What if they didn't have that at home, right?
right. Totally agree. And even just like, and this is what I love about, working with our esports in schools, is that what I love is that there's always this like, uh, building of trust, right? I was unpacking like even just the word over the weekend, unity. What does unity look like? And even that word alone, it's so small, but it's so big. But we all come from different backgrounds, and just because we're in the same school doesn't mean that we're united. I mean, yes, we're in a same school in this space, but we really have to unpack like our backgrounds, ourselves, and be able to share that personality that makes us unique. And what does that bridging look like, so that we can essentially be united? And whenever we have to talk and we have to have these courageous conversations to build each other, I mean, that's why language is so powerful, because what we are spreading could either be for good or for harm. And that harm, what you shared earlier, that's something I want to capture too, because it just makes me think like, gosh, we're imperfect people, right? We're going to make mistakes, but gosh, I really hope that the mistake I make doesn't harm someone else in my actions. And especially here in this mouth, whatever I say doesn't hurt somebody in a way that, hey, you know what? They're holding this emotion really tight, and they could have been easily in the brink of quitting or falling short or what have you. Um, but this is what I love about esports, is that I've noticed more of, hey, we all have this goal. We want to come together and we take feedback very seriously. And I don't know any organization that I've ever been a part of that does that so well, because I see there's so much passion and drive in a lot of students that they just meet together in the virtual space, in the land space. And I just love seeing the power, if you will, because that's just the power of the the many, of the
The
collective.
power of the people.
The power of the people, yeah, the collective.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's collegiate esports is a beautiful thing in that you could see a ton of students and they all gather together and really achieve this goal and push it to their administration, push it to their school. That's one of the things that we were able to do. We actually got York University to recognize esports as an athletic sport, and that took a lot of work. That took like probably weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of meetings and like years of them ghosting my emails. So it's never been a one track process. I've had to bug a lot of people. I used to be the girl that people would know about who would go into offices and start bothering people immediately, start talking about esports, because I told them, hey, we have this community of 2,000 students in a Discord server almost, and you guys are
Wow.
just ignoring us, you know?
Yeah, you're representing the student voices, and gosh, that role ambassador couldn't be well placed. You are the ambassador. You're
Thank you.
the torch, the flame.
Yeah, so even in academic institutions, like, you need that liaison, you need that person
Yeah.
who can go to the administration and negotiate at a high level, but also be one with the students, because a lot of the times what will happen is the school will say, oh, we're going to appoint this person to lead our esports community, and we have these goals set for ROI and recruitment trackers and all of these things, and then their program fails and they wonder why. And it's like, well, esports is not going to be a linear process that's going to happen right away at your school. All of these arenas and things that you're seeing in this $3 billion gold rush that they love referencing, that's
Right.
taking years.
Yeah.
Like, that is taking years. All of these big orgs that are at the top of the game right now, they've been at this for years and they've had a ton of failures that no one pays attention to. So
Mm.
it's just understanding that if you focus on the students first, the esports, the money and stuff will come, because there's
Mm.
only one university that I can think of right now that nets a positive profit on this, and
Mm.
it's UC Irvine, and they
Mm.
were like the first people to jump on this. So it
Yeah.
really shows that that's the only school that's currently profiting from having an esports program. So slow down, look
Mm.
at how you can help your students, because like you said, a lot of it could be an access issue. What if the real solution here is Wi-Fi and some
Mm.
computers in a space where they can all collect together and enjoy gaming?
No, gosh, well said, well said. And yes, we're very familiar with UCI's success, and we love that we have that bridge and collect in partnership with them as well. Wonderful institution, nothing but good things for them, honestly. And yeah, and I just wanted to share, like what you said earlier, is that it takes tons and tons of effort. You can't necessarily just look at just the success points only. And I think that sometimes, when we capture video and we capture media takes, I mean, sometimes we just limelight just the successful stories, right? And to me, I find it a little, deceiving, because really, what was the backing of all of that? What was that evolution process? What was that history? Show us that. Like, I'd be more in tune on that, because it is, a lot of hours of, lobbying and getting everybody together and being able to throw some kind of effort into it where you don't know if the return is going to be positive or negative because you're testing things out. And it's really the discovery aspect of it as well too. And that's why I really love that you said that, because I encourage anyone, especially if you're pursuing esports, if you have an idea, test it out. And probably the best thing to do is to test it out early. And if it fails early, great. You now did not invest more time on something that will, essentially won't lead you to the positive results that you're hoping to get to. It's a great way of design thinking that I can honestly just throw out there as a gift to everybody to hopefully dive in and just encourage them.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Awesome. Yeah. It's so true. And thank you for the chat right there. I just took a peek right now. Success, everyone sees it, and success is not the setbacks. You know what I mean? Sometimes we have to take a look at those setbacks and say, hey, what caused this here? What led us to get to the result we got? Now that I've heard a lot of what Ayan just said, like, gosh, let's think about how this story emulates mine, and now I can be the voice and be able to hopefully get more voices in there, because I can't do this alone. And it sounds like to me, Ayan, like this is like the typical conversations I have. Oh, the female that's currently in this esports org, well, she's a very special person. And I think to myself, there's a lot of special people out there. You know what I mean? And I love that, yes, that person is definitely putting themselves up there and having the tough challenges, but it shouldn't feel that tough. It should feel more welcoming, if anything. And
Absolutely.
This other question that got thrown at me, it's like safe spaces. What do safe spaces look like? Can you share a little bit about that? And I'm sorry, I know we've got about 8 minutes left, but if you don't mind.
I'll try to keep it quaint. So
Okay.
safe spaces, I believe, are very important to the success of a community, because there are going to be some things that are going to be issues that arise from not having that space to begin with. So when it comes down to competition, I have very controversial takes on this. I actually wrote an entire essay of why I don't believe in women-only tournaments. And the reason I said this is because I believe that competition in esports, there's no biological excuse for why you would separate it. And I also have firsthand experience. So when I was working at Pokemon, the World Championships, there were there were little kids competing in division, and they were little girls and little boys, and they were competing in the same division. So I feel like the whole gender division thing starts a bit later on. But when it comes to safe spaces, and we're thinking not so much about the actual competition front, and we're thinking about behind closed doors, I do think that all women teams should be a thing, because if they're all going to be living together, then there's concerns that are going to arise. So I think that whatever it is that the person or the organization does to keep those people safe, that's on them, and that burden and responsibility goes on to them if they invest in it. But also, not a burden, that responsibility, because they should be doing it. It shouldn't be a burden. It's one of those moments right now. I just caught myself where, like, with the language we use can really define how we're going to speak about a subject, right?
Right.
I don't think I'm a burden, right?
No, right.
But we're told so often that these things are a burden, right? And
Right.
even when it comes to women's safety, there are some orgs and some organizations that people do work on in the space. They're really confidential. They're whisper networks. We talk about them in private, and it's to make sure that if we're at events, we can keep each other safe. And if we're at events, if you need somebody to stay with, then you can room with some girls or something instead. Making sure, is this company actually making it a priority to not make co-ed spaces a thing? And also, if we're going to talk about safe spaces when it comes to people of color, again, a lot of these are whisper networks. We talk about these things, but we talk about them in private, because sometimes when it's public facing, it's a little bit harder to dissect beneath the broader issues. So I'm really happy that now, like AnyKey and other organizations like Black Girl Gamers are really pushing diversity and inclusion on a public front. But I still have those private conversations set up with friends, just because there's spaces that we can vent. And I believe in them. I believe in having those safe spaces, because like you said, there's mental health restoration, and also thinking, am I crazy, or is this actually a thing that I'm dealing with?
Right on, right on. Oh gosh, well said. And we all need that. I encourage it. Mental health is big in what we do and everything in life. And yeah, we need that. We need friends. We need networks. We need supports. We need mentors. We need people to guide us. And and also too, if you feel like, hey, I don't feel like I can give anything good and positive, and I need to take at this moment, that's okay. We come in seasons too. Sometimes we need to build ourselves up to gain that confidence because maybe we're lacking that right now, and then hopefully that gift gets given, and then you keep giving that gift back. I completely agree. Just being able to talk to a few folks, I realized there is seasons, right? We hit these downfalls and then we need to come back up as an individual so that we can hopefully restore ourselves in a lot of the injustices that occur that really demoralizes ourselves. And just even our outlook too on people. Hopefully it gives us the umph that we need to get back on track and to be able to serve a community, a group of people, because we're all connected in some way, shape, or form. Um, Anyways, oh gosh, time is fleeting, and I knew it would.
Yeah,
A
I like this
conversation like this,
conversation.
yeah, me too. Me too. It's like, oh man, it's already that time. But I just want to quickly, just for everybody, that if we didn't get to your questions, forgive us. We do want to continue the dialogue. We're not done by any stretch of the imagination. Ayan's just one of these glorious people that we got a chance to meet, and I
Oh,
can't
thank you so
thank
much.
you
I
enough.
appreciate it. I'm more honored by the opportunity to be able
Oh,
to speak to the students. I think,
oh man.
I think I'm pretty okay, but they're interacting with chat and saying sweet things to me. I like them a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Gosh, honestly. And I know we're gonna, hopefully, get a chance to invite you again on another day that works out. But my gosh, for chat, please share your love. I know it's easy to do. She's obviously a wonderful person. Ayan, if you don't mind, just take us home. Give us your last words of wisdom. I love that you said about being yourself. Just give us one more words of wisdom, and that'll take us home.
Okay, so one thing that I learned is in any industry, but in esports especially, what people say about you and how they think of you, that's all based on your reputation. And
Mm,
your reputation is going to be based on your brand is based on your reputation. Your brand is based on your reputation. So your brand is what people think of you, and it's what they say about you when you're not in the room. So
mm,
always be a good person, treat people with respect, and treat them with human decency. And you'll see the same thing. Even if it's not immediate, you'll see it eventually come back to you. Because if you think about all of the good that you do in the space, it'll make a huge difference. And even if you can't make a difference in the lives of everybody, if you reach one person or two people or even three, it makes a huge difference because those people could reach even more people. And it creates a chain reaction of good thoughts and positivity. And if you do have any more questions after, I'm happy to answer them. Like I can type to you. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I love meeting new people.
awesome. And I'll be sure to share, if it's okay with you, your social sites,
Yeah, sure.
reach out to you. Okay, awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in live. And again, for those that watch this recording, let's continue to dialogue. Please leave your chat responses. This isn't done by any stretch of the imagination. We just had the ability to actually be able to present this because it worked out in our schedules. And honestly, I'm just grateful for people like Ayan, and there's more out there too.
Thank
I'd
you.
love to bring more folks into the fold. But thank you so much. And you guys stay safe, and we'll connect later on. Bye, you guys.